This is my story of using nitrous oxide, sometimes in combination with other substances, over the course of a single year. I am posting it to hopefully help people avoid the state I'm currently in. I don't tell anybody that drugs are bad. I was the last person to say that. Nevertheless, I can't stretch this point enough. Be very careful with this substance. It can be heavily addictive, and due to its ready availability and its legal status, there are almost no boundaries to it. I started using nitrous approximately a year ago. I tried it a few years before, but I hadn't been into it that much back then. After a decent night partying, I found myself in the apartment of a good friend, who suddenly pulls out a whipped cream dispenser and chargers. There was it again. This mind-blowing rush, this sudden deconstruction of my familiar reality. As soon as the effect wore off, I instantly asked for another balloon. We kept going like this until there were no more chargers left, desperately hoping to find at least one more. I was searching around on the floor, but they were all gone. This night, I decided that I would get my own dispenser and chargers, and conduct my own research on the substance. Maybe 6 or 8 weeks later, my shipment arrived. Occasionally, I would go through a few balloons and analyze the flexibility of my perception. 4 weeks later, a few days after Christmas, I did a blotter of acid. A few hours into the trip, I was thinking about combining these two mighty substances, and I did it. I am now going to illustrate a few vivid memories of the scenes I landed in. These scenes appeared astonishingly real, almost hyper-real. If I didn't know that I was on a trip, I would have taken these scenes as absolutely real and true. Standing in my room, I inhaled the contents of the balloon. I shouldn't be doing this because there is always the danger of going unconscious, falling, and thus hurting myself. Anyways, my head started to become glass, slightly green, solid glass. Realizing this, my complete jaw broke off, fell to the ground, and burst into a million tiny shards. Before I could even correctly process what just happened, I was back in the real world. My jaw was in place, my head was normal again. I was deeply shocked and fascinated at once. Another scene. I was sitting in the middle of my bed. I was using a red balloon. I found out that the color of the balloon, to a certain degree, defines the quality and/or the theme of the following scene. Breathing in and out, suddenly, waves of warm, red blood covered my skin in bed. Surprisingly, the scene did not scare me at all in the moment. One of the most impressive scenes was this one. I have a printing of a dolly picture in my room that my subconscious probably noticed as I was sitting down on my bed with a yellow balloon. Suddenly the whole environment changes, and I'm sitting in the middle of a flat desert, blue sky and sun above, endless plains of sand around me. It was hot. Suddenly I recognize a sunk-down humanoid figure. It was rather ugly, deformed, a very alien-like being. As it looked at me, I looked back into pitch-black eyes. It started to talk in a language that strangely reminded me of French. In this moment, a neon yellow square appeared above my head and landed on it. It was melting with my head, and my head, as well as the yellow plastic thing, started to drip onto the carpet between my feet. I was thrilled. These experiences and scenes were highly intense, sometimes disturbing, but sometimes beautiful. The combination of the two seemed like a key to a gate to a universe inside my head. A universe my head had produced. A universe containing infinite possibilities. A universe I could even influence to a certain degree. A universe that I really wanted to explore. As time went by, I would occasionally start to trip and do nitrous at the same time. In the beginning, about 50 chargers a night. This soon changed. It went up to 100, sometimes even 200, if I was with friends, for example. The next level was reached when I noticed that quite similar hallucinations would occur when consuming large amounts of nitrous in a short period of time. About 10 chargers in 2 minutes or so. I soon started consuming nitrous when I wasn't tripping on acid. A few capsules every now and then. The effect was already reduced drastically. The whirring sounds and acoustic effects most people experience while on nitrous had faded a long time ago. I needed more and more chargers to get the desired effect. Meanwhile, I also didn't care about getting enough oxygen into my system anymore. When ordering supplies, I did not order 100 chargers as I did the first time, but now boxes of 360 chargers. I became concerned about the health risks that the nitrous poses when abused regularly. I was getting B12 injections. Nevertheless, sometimes I would get feelings of numbness in my limbs, or muscle twitches, but like every addict, that never stopped me from keeping going. My obsession with nitrous reached a ridiculous extent. I spent lots and lots of money for that cheap 2 seconds of bliss. I don't even remember it afterwards. My family noticed that I was changing and caught me twice while I was using. This led to several arguments and clashes. My mom threatened to throw me out of the house and stop giving me money, but this didn't keep me from going on either. I started developing whole stories about ghosts and gods and entities I encountered in the nitrous dimension. As every madman, I saw myself as a chosen one, sent to take this realm, accessible for mankind. My method of use also changed over the course of time. I started with 1 charger in 1 balloon. It soon became 2 in 1 balloon. Afterwards, many double balloons rapidly, up to the point where I was inhaling directly out of the dispenser and exhaling into a balloon. This is quite dangerous if you accidentally put more chargers into it, and you're likely to burst your lungs with the pressure. This almost happened to me 2 times. When I noticed that one of the local stores sold chargers, I sometimes went there, sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. One time even the cashier told me that she knew exactly what I was up to with the 100 chargers I bought. Hundreds of charger boxes towered up in my wardrobe and drawers. I began to feel ashamed, but this also didn't make me quit. The experience of the combination was, until then, unimpaired by tolerance, so I was convinced that nothing really serious or dangerous had happened so far. Another evening when tripping with friends, they noticed how I changed when using nitrous. At that point, I realized the first time that I actually was. It made me a mindless slave. A hardcore addict that somebody would freak out and get angry if somebody took away his chargers. When there was no gas left, a certain sadness and anger started to set in. I believe that the short effect of nitrous has a lot to do with its addiction potential. It deserves to be called hippie crack. I never did crack, but I can't imagine it has to be any worse than nitrous is to me. The short but intense effect makes me want more and more until I get into a gas frenzy where I don't think about or even realize my excessive use anymore. A friend who visited me one day told me he was willing to help me get rid of the empty chargers. We put all the boxes we found in a large suitcase, weighing about 60 kilograms and containing about 8,000 chargers. I knew that I was using a lot, but didn't expect it to be that much. Again, I felt ashamed. I gave my whipped cream dispenser to my brother, telling him I was not able to do this anymore, and that I wasn't able to do this to myself or my family ever again. Then about a month ago, I started using even more excessive than ever before. I ordered a new dispenser with 360 chargers and emptied all of them in 3 days. I needed more, so I instantly ordered another 600 and again I used a large portion of these within 3 days. Apart from the tingling and numbness, I never experienced ill or side effects. But this now changed. My brain felt fried. I had terrible headaches. I wasn't able to focus or concentrate correctly. I swore to myself to never touch this substance again. The spasms and the numbness got worse. I took my B12 and hoped that this condition was to end soon. My last relapse was about 2 weeks ago. I did 160 chargers in one night. I felt horrible. All the effects were gone. All the magic and bizarre realities had faded into a weak, barely noticeable feeling. I developed thoughts like, the CIA massively influences my television, and I brainwashed myself. Abnormal and disturbing thoughts. I was getting paranoid. Nitrous didn't do shit for me anymore. I was hating myself for ruining my physical and my mental health, for something I didn't even get anything out of anymore. I was hating myself for going through approximately 10,000 chargers in a single year. I was hating myself, and I was hating my life. Right now, the physical symptoms are gone, but until now I did not realize the psychic damage I had done to myself. Life appears colorless and tasteless to me. It's trivial and dull. I feel misplaced, as if I had taken the wrong exit to the wrong dimension. One thing that deeply bothers me is that music doesn't sound the same anymore. My brain somehow filters off some effects or vocals, reducing the songs I once loved to a sad, catastrophic sludge of noise. I'm not myself anymore. I'm shattered. My concentration and focus last for 3 seconds maximum, and I'm unable to produce complex thoughts. My life changed in a way I never expected it to. I regret having ever started using nitrous. Before, my life was so rich and full of life and complete. Now it's shallow and incomplete and has no sensation. Calling this condition sad would make the understatement of the year. Nitrous extracted my will, my vitality, and my soulfulness. It took my interests, my creativity, my ideas, and my sense of self. It's all gone. Many people I have met that use or have used nitrous did not encounter any problems with addiction. My problem basically was that I was having large amounts and a lack of self-discipline. I think every addict has this. Nitrous produces profound experiences, definitely, and I'm sure it is an interesting and useful recreational drug. But in case you're prone to excessive consumption of whatever drugs you have to solve problems, it doesn't work, by the way. Don't ever touch nitrous. It sucked me in, changed me, took away my true self, ruined me financially, socially, and emotionally. This is by far the worst substance I've met in my drug career. Up to the current day, I'm hoping my life will normalize again. It's not even worth living anymore. I didn't consume this drug. It consumed me.